So what I'm presenting to you is a kind of archaeology of how of the perception in the past, and we can talk about how it's changing into the present if we have enough time. But in a sort of pure Aboriginal worldview of, say, 1491, we can extrapolate a little bit to what, from looking at early writings, the beginning in 1492, about how were the people and how did they see the world. And so the first thing that's important for understanding emotional distress in Indian country is that it's not defined that way. René Descartes never visited North America, so there's no dualism here in our way of thinking about the world. There's no department of psychiatry and department of medicine. Doesn't work that way. There's no such thing as a psychiatric illness, a medical illness, or a psychosomatic illness. Doesn't work that way. So in our view, there's suffering and pain. And suffering and pain is always manifested in how you feel in your body. You body it forth. So, and it's manifested in disturbances in social relations. Suffering is always performed with other people. So we don't have that notion that it's either in the software or the hardware. In Indian country, if you're suffering, your whole being is suffering. Your body, mind, spirits, everything is, and community is suffering. The Dene people here have such a strong belief that if one person is ill, the whole community is ill, and that's what's contributing to that one person being ill. And so here in northern New Mexico, if somebody is ill, the community participates in 6 to 14 day ceremonies. You've perhaps read about some of those, the Night Way, the Coyote Way, the Blessing Way, and the whole community participates because everyone recognizes that they're part of the sickness. It's not an individual sickness. There's no such thing as an individual sickness or a psychological illness. It doesn't work that way. So everything is simultaneously body, mind, spirit. And so the classifications of illnesses are different. And if you think about, in allopathic medicine and Eurocentric medicine or Eurocentric psychology, the source for problems are always sought within the individual. You look for a diagnosis within the individual. You look for a genetic flaw. You look for, you order lab tests, you get CT scans. So you're looking within the individual for the source of distress. In Indian country, you look to the relationships for the source of distress. You look outside of the individual for the sources of distress. Because the view is that mind resides between people and not within someone. So mind is a phenomena that exists in relationship between people, but not just people. Animals, plants, nature, spirits. Mind exists in the relationships with every being to whom you're connected, and you are connected to all beings. So it's a radically different view of mind. So an Aboriginal diagnosis would then look toward where are the problems in relationships. So did you offend someone? Did you break a taboo? Are you fighting with someone? Did you wrong an animal? Did you dishonor a plant? Did someone curse you? Did a witch curse you? Did you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time when someone was hexing someone else? Did you anger the spirits? Did you dishonor an ancestor? You have coyote sickness, then they call it, which is you go mad and maybe you're drinking and drugging and gambling and all that kind of stuff. So it's a worldview that places the illness but in relationships. And so the diagnosis has to do, if you're being diagnosed with a Dene hand trembler, or where I live with a Cree shaking tent ceremony, if you're being diagnosed, the point of the diagnosis is to find out where is the disharmony in your life, where is the imbalance, you know? And spirits are always a part of diagnosis in traditional cultures. So when the hand trembler in the Dene world in northern New Mexico, when the hand trembler goes into trance and begins to open herself up to receive wisdom, it's the spirits that are telling her what's wrong. And then once she knows, then she'll know what ceremony needs to be done to correct it. The same with the shaking tent. In the shaking tent ceremony, the leader is inside a small structure covered with canvas now, because who can afford buffalo skins? You can sell them to the tourists for $3,000. So that's culture change. It reminds me of a guy I met on the plaza. He was selling pots. He was a Dene potter, you know. And some of the pots were $10, some were $50, and some were $100. And I was looking at them and I said, you know, I can't tell the difference between the $10 pot and a $100 pot. What's the difference? He said, some people like to pay 10, some like to pay 50. So when you go pot buying on the plaza, be careful. So anyway, so what we're talking about is really a radically different worldview, you know, that's always spiritual. So in traditional culture, nothing is done without the involvement of the spirits. There's no secular culture in traditional North America. So healing is always spiritual, physical, emotional, social, community-wide. And you can certainly see that if you sit in on a Dene ceremony. You know, there's the inner world inside the ceremonial hogan, or octagonal structure, where the sand paintings are done, and the person sits on the sand paintings, and the story that underlies the ceremony is sung over the course of 8 to 14 nights. And in that process, the holy beings that are being called upon appear and perform doctrine, take the illness away from the person. And if they have time and energy, then when they're done with the person, they go out into the outer world where the people are sitting outside, and they doctor those people. And often there'll be ceremonial dances on the last 2 days, to kind of, when the person is almost well, to kind of rev up the spirits, to get them to doctor the people that have been holding space around the hogan. Same thing happens in my culture in the Sundance. The dancers are dancing. I'm going to show you some pictures at the end of Sundance. So the dancers are dancing for 4 days and nights without food or water. And in the middle, there's the tree of life, and there's a constant procession of people to get doctored by the healers while the dancers are holding space. And other people around the dancers are holding space. So that is an alien concept in much Eurocentric thought, which is that you can't heal without community. You can't heal very well without community. That healing is a social phenomenon. And it's so powerful. Imagine imagine you're on the prairies like I showed you. There's a tree that's been cut and it's put in the middle of a field, and a kind of structure has been built around it, but it's fairly open. And 150 people are dancing in costume. This is my Sundance that I go to. 150 people are dancing in costume. There's 8 drummers drumming and singing. And imagine that you're sick. This is going on for 4 days and nights. Imagine that you're sick and you come into the middle of this, and the healer lies you down on the ground next to the tree of life, and the spirits tell him what's wrong with you, and then he tells you what's wrong, and he doctors you, you know, with the eagle feather, with smoke, or with sage, and then he gives you some prescriptive instructions of what you must do to get well. And you must carry out these instructions, or the spirits will abandon you. I mean, they won't help you if you don't do what he tells you, or what they told him to tell you. But imagine the power of 150 people dancing around you to the healing process. So it's something that Eurocentric thinkers easily forget when they try to go into little cubicles and do healing work with people. They forget the social context.